Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Because Boris is apparently looking at my notes, so I've got to go over and talk to him. More from Jess and Nick later.
What a rotter.
I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by the Foreign Secretary, who's not playing by the rules. Great. Anyway, lovely to see you. Nicholas Sames, your esteemed colleague, says that what you've announced, or what the Prime Minister has announced on social care, is the beginning of a process of sorting out. Do you think that's right, or is this... Because it doesn't sound as though he's terribly happy with the policy.
No, I think what Sir Nicholas said was absolutely right, which is this is necessary. We face another 2 million people over the age of 75 in the next 10 years. We have to do something about the huge costs of social care. And I think it's a mark of Theresa May's bravery and candour with the electorate that she is doing this. And
your poll ratings are falling, according to the two latest polls.
It shows
are you worried about
the strength and purpose that she will bring to everything she does if we are re-elected, and in particular, of course, to the Brexit negotiations. And I think there is a fundamental contrast in this election between the two candidates who can conceivably be Prime Minister.
Now,
the relevant contrast is, who do you trust? Who do you really want to confide in to handle those all-important Brexit negotiations?
Yeah, but on the question of trust, people want an honest answer on this social care thing. Now, having read through my notes, you'll know what's coming next, which is, was the Cabinet consulted on this policy before it was put in the manifesto?
I think this is the right policy.
No, you're not answering.
And I'm supporting...
Plainly, you weren't asked your opinion on it.
There's all sorts of consultations about the manifesto in advance. You wouldn't expect me to go into detail. But we need to do something.
I think we might expect it.
No, you certainly wouldn't. But we need to do something to tackle the cost of social care. And the crucial thing that, as Nicholas said, people are going to be able to whatever happens, people are going to be able to live in their own home. They'll have that anxiety taken away. They'll be able to live in their own home, and they will be able to pass on a minimum of £100,000 to their kids. Now, this is a policy. Sure. This is a policy that has been supported across the spectrum. I saw Polly Toynbee, my old friend Polly Toynbee, saying she thought it was the right way forward. It was brave and right and a progressive thing to do. And I really think that the way that Theresa May has handled this is a mark of her character and of her resolve and the determination that she brings to government. Can I ask and that is exactly, just to get back to my central point, that is exactly what we need now. Because we are at a critical phase in the history of this country. We have to get Brexit right. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for Britain, as I've argued with you before, Robert, but it has to be done right. And I am genuinely alarmed by the idea that it could be handled in just 11 days after the election by Jeremy Corbyn. This is a guy who doesn't know...
Boris, but we are going to come back to Brexit, so don't have any anxiety about that. But we need, because this is the most controversial and the most eye-catching policy in the manifesto, I've just got to ask you another couple of questions about it. One is this point, which is raised a lot with me, that it is unfair that you have to pay... but what could turn out to be a vast amount of your own savings if you suffer from dementia, but if you have some other kind of illness like cancer, the state picks up the bill. Do you recognise why people feel that's
Robert,
unfair?
I do understand people's reservations and people's the questions that people are asking about some of the detail of this. But the broad thrust is right. And as Prime Minister said, there will be a consultation on getting it right. But the broad thrust has got to be brave, to be resolute, and to take on the problem. And I think most people will think it reasonable that we've quadrupled the amount that you can pass on to your kids from about £23,000 to £100,000, and nobody will face the terror of being forced to sell their home while they're alive. And I think that is a very important step forward.
Just finally, before we move off this subject, this issue of whether the Prime Minister, indeed the Tory party, is in a sense, devaluing everything that older people have done in their lives by, you know, ending the triple lock.
Absolutely not.
Means testing.
You're talking to the man. You're talking to the man who not only who extended free travel in London to 24 hours a day.
But you understand the anxiety that Jess Phillips raised from one of her constituents.
And it is massively valued. It's something that is very progressive, that keeps older people in work. We support it completely. What we're trying to do is to address what I think everybody, all serious demographers acknowledge, will be a massive problem of the costs of social care in the long term. This is responsible, grown-up, conservative approach, trying to deal with a long-term problem in a way that is equitable, allows people to pass on a very substantial sum still to their kids, and takes away the fear of having your home sold.
And now on the other big issue, I think, for many people of the campaign, which is immigration, are you very disappointed that you lost the argument with the Prime Minister on abandoning that tens of thousands target?
Let's be absolutely clear about immigration, Robert. As I say, there are two candidates at this election. One of them, Jeremy Corbyn, is in favour of higher immigration and complete free movement, he said in January. And, I do not for the life of me understand how he is supposed to go and sit at that table in Brussels on day one of the talks, when he hasn't got a clue whether he wants to stay in the single market or the customs union. He doesn't know whether he wants to be in or out of either of them. And he has a completely unintelligible position on immigration. I think they're going to look at him and they're going to have him for breakfast. And I think it would be deeply damaging to the interests of this country.
Whether they do or not, do you personally believe the target of tens of thousands for net migration is a sensible target?
Look, I certainly think that you need to get immigration down.
To tens of thousands.
I think you need to have a sensible target, and I think tens of thousands is a perfectly sensible target.
And you don't think it'll damage the British economy?
There is no way at all.
You don't think that would damage the British economy?
There is no way at all that you can control immigration, if you have the approach of Corbyn and the Labour Party, and you say it simply doesn't matter. And
when will immigration into this country be tens of thousands?
When we're able to take back control.
Well, so in 2019, it's going to fall to tens of thousands?
I'm not going to make any predictions of when we're going to achieve it. But what I can tell you is that unless you have Theresa May able to deliver on that agenda and able to push through what the British people actually voted for on June the 23rd last year and take back control of our immigration system, you haven't got a prayer of achieving it.
And just
because Jeremy Corbyn is ideologically opposed to the whole shebang.
We haven't got long before the break, so one quick one on this and then we'll come back to you in a couple of minutes. But you on this programme were very clear that you didn't want student numbers in the emigration figures. Again, this is not really your manifesto, is it? You must be really disappointed that the students are still there.
I'm pro. I think London is and this country is a fantastic magnet for talent and for students, and that will continue. But
you're not worried that students will be deterred by the fact that you're driving immigration down to tens of thousands, which may imply to them that they're not welcome here?
No, this is an economy that is hugely attractive to people from around the world, and we should take that as a compliment to the UK. But it is perfectly reasonable to have control, and that is what we want. And you can't achieve that if you go into these negotiations without the foggiest idea about what you want to achieve. And I'm afraid Jeremy Corbyn clearly wants not only to raise immigration, as he said, but he doesn't know whether he wants to be in the single market or out of it.
Don't go away, because we've got more from Boris after the break. I'm delighted, I'm slightly surprised, the Foreign Secretary is still here. Anushka.
Thanks, Robert. Well, as you can imagine, we are getting lots of reaction on Twitter to Boris Johnson's interview. Let me show you what Rob Hutton from Bloomberg has said about it. Johnson is the Tories' living dead cat. A dead cat is something you throw on the table at election times to distract people. Rob continues, if their poll lead falls anymore, they'll stick him on another zip wire for the rest of the campaign. Please bring it on. And let's see what we've got here from Norman Smith at the BBC. He points out that the Foreign Secretary has said social care policy is supported across the spectrum. Starter for 10. Can you name a charity or pensioner group who back it? We will come back to that. But first, being Foreign Secretary means building foreign relationships, and few are more important than our relationship with the US, which may explain why our guest has changed his mind on Donald Trump. He once said he was clearly out of his mind. He now thinks he has an exciting agenda for change. But can Boris Johnson be trumped out? Let's see, using our very own Trumpometer. This measures the president's emotions via his tweets. So starting on the lower ground floors here, he is calling the former FBI Director James Comey. He's saying he'll be replaced by someone who will do a far better job. Let's say that is Donald Trump positively calm. Up we go, and we get him quite peeved, trolling Iran on Twitter, saying they don't appreciate how kind President Obama was to them, not me. And up to the gold-plated penthouse, Donald Trump thinks allegations against him amount to the single greatest witch hunt of a politician in American history. So, Foreign Secretary, where would you be stepping off the lift?
So, I'm delighted that Boris, as I say, is still with me. Single greatest witch hunt of a politician in American history?
Donald Trump has his own approach, doesn't he? And he's bringing something new to... I don't think anybody expected a president of the United States to have, to keep tweeting in the way that he is, but I think a lot of people find it quite refreshing, quite interesting, because these are the round, unvarnished, unpasteurised, unhomogenized views of Donald Trump, and I think I'm not allowed to do. I'd love to keep tweeting the whole time.
Lot of talk in America that he will be impeached. Have you sort of looked at the protocol of how we behave in those circumstances when the impeachment process is going on? Who would our loyalty be to it? Would it be to the president? Would it be to the legislature? Complicated stuff.
It is, but you'll remember we went through this with Bill Clinton, who was impeached, if you recall, for his shenanigans with Monica Lewinsky and so on. And it was very clear what the interests of the UK were then. You're about to have Hugh Grant on your show, who memorably made a speech, I think, in some film about how the British Prime Minister is perfectly at liberty to say something that's completely in distinction from the President of the United States. We often disagree, but the fundamentals of our relationship are extremely strong.
But how would we maintain the relationship in those circumstances?
Well, there are all sorts of... the relationship with the President and between the President and Theresa May would continue.
Would continue in the normal kind of way, even if he were going to impeachment.
Hoping that Theresa was re-elected. But at all sorts of levels, it is incredibly dense and intricate relationship.
Do you think he will serve a full term?
On intelligence sharing.
Do you think he will serve a full term?
Look, that's really for the American people and for the American system. But I think my strong impression is that there's all sorts of plaster falling off the ceiling as a result of the style of his government. But actually, when you look at you saw he tweeted about Iran there, and everybody's worried, well, had been very worried about the US approach on Iran. Actually, thanks at least partly to British diplomacy, the Americans now support the nuclear deal with Iran, where they're not moving away from that. They haven't moved their embassy to Jerusalem. And in Syria, which I was mentioning to you just before the break, it's very interesting that during the break, they are doing things that Obama never did, which actually a lot of people, liberals around the world, and particularly in the Middle East, are
we haven't got a lot of time, Boris. I want to bring you back to the meeting. I want to bring you back to the meat of the election. Andrew Roberts today attacks the Tory manifesto for betraying the values of Baldwin, Churchill, all the great
exactly. You've got his grandson heckling you there. You couldn't have a more effective and instant repudiation.
You're not worried that all this
repudiation of that point.
You're not worried
out of the horse's mouth, I might say.
So just to be clear, all this stress on narrowing the gap between rich and poor, tackling inequality. This is stuff you're fully signed up to.
One nation Toryism understands the basic symmetry of an economy and of politics, which is you've got to have a strong economy and a dynamic, wealth-creating sector, Robert, to pay for the things we care for.
We're almost out of time. I've got to ask you two.
And we're putting £8 billion more engaged, and we've got a long-term plan.
You'll love this. You'll love this because it goes to your core interest. We did ask our viewers the one question they wanted to ask you. You'll not be surprised that most came back with, why isn't the £350 million, which are getting back,
the only way
why
you're
is
going
that
to take back control?
Why is it not in the manifesto? Why is it not in the manifesto?
It
Boris?
is actually.
It's not there.
And
no,
Theresa May, she said it.
There.
She said it at the launch of our manifesto.
She didn't.
She said the only way
there.
to take back control. She said we're going to take back.
You were there loyally clapping.
I was absolutely, no, absolutely, I was.
Supine way. You weren't allowed to speak. Way. We'll give it to you. Do you like the way that you're all being bossed around?
Well,
in this
just
way?
a couple of points.
Worshipping at the.
Yes is the answer. I'll tell you why.
Go on.
I'll tell you why.
Worshipping at the altar of St. Theresa. Why?
I'll tell you why. Because the contrast, but anything we can do to intensify the fundamental contrast of this election, which is between Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn. That's the choice before the people of this country. Do they really want Jeremy Corbyn in those negotiations?
Unfortunately,
I'll tell you something, I don't. I really don't.
Lovely to see you, Boris. Thanks so much for coming in. And let's see what... my distinguished guests, Jess and Nicholas, made of that. Can I just pick up, though, on that point we were talking about, which is the tenor of the manifesto? I mean, I've certainly never read a Tory manifesto like it. No new tax cuts being offered, lots of new burdens for business.
But, Robert,
I just want to be clear, you are wholly comfortable with what many people see as a very lefty form of
well, look, the world is a totally different world to the one in which I first came into politics 34 years ago, in Margaret Thatcher's first parliament. It's a totally different world.
Thank God.
But it is a different world, and it requires different responses, and it requires different solutions to very major problems, and the problems are very different now. So I think it's a really serious, high-minded, genuine attempt to try and drag the debate into dealing with the big issues. And these next 5 years are absolutely critical for Brexit, for the economy, for any number of issues, particularly social care.
I mean, Jess, I was very struck. I actually said this to Theresa May when I interviewed her last week, that so much of what was in that manifesto could have been said by Tony Blair.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely been a bit of robbing of Labour manifestos of old, like the energy crisis, which they all said was Marxist.
But how much does that worry you? Because there is a threat to Labour that lots of your core voters, particularly in the north, particularly on this Brexit issue, where I think quite a lot, as you know, particularly working-class Labour voters, are more in sympathy with the Tory position than with Jeremy Corbyn's position. You know, she's absolutely going for your core vote, isn't she?
Except that I don't think that it's too little too late. I don't think people where I live who are paying the bedroom tax and who are having their disability benefits taken away are suddenly going to go, oh, look, she said she was going to take the houses off old people. Look, what a lovely woman. That is just not going to happen. She presents incredibly inhumanely, just personally. I mean, no wonder, you know, she says Boris on your nice, colourful show, because she's not very warm, and I don't think that people think that she is going to be there for them and their families where I live. It's certainly not coming across on the doorstep. But there is a definite shift of what the Tories are saying. But they say a lot of things. They said they were going to sort out mental health. I haven't seen it. I certainly haven't seen it.
That is a long-term problem, Jess. You know, you agree with that. They have put a lot of money into it. And it's the same with me. It hasn't come through properly yet, but it will come through. But the other point, Robert, is that the Tory party has always prospered because it's always retained this extraordinary ability to change. But it's built on very solid, very firm architecture and footings, and I'm completely content with the manifesto.
Jess Nicholas, we're going to talk to you more in just a few moments.